So these things still exist.
Well, I ended up downloading a book called Side Hustle. It's got a premise where you can take an idea to execution in about 27 days. It's something that I thought would be interesting and a decent enough experiment for me to try out, track each one of the days that I go through, and just see how things go. So currently we're at day one, and day one is basically predicting the future. That's what the name of the chapter is called. So I'll look over that and give a little bit of an update once I actually go through it, some of my thoughts, etc., etc.
Okay, so first thing that it actually talks about is where I want to be in 27 days after the end of the course, after the end of me creating my actual side hustle. So ideally, I'd have enough money to be able to, keep going on my travels, not needing to worrying about running out of road, running out of cash, and needing to go back to the States to regroup. Being able to continue indefinitely, or at least have the ability, if I want to choose that option, it's there. So that's going to be the major thing. In a previous video, I mentioned what seems like an overly ambitious number of like $5,000 to $10,000 a month. Yeah, that's no comment. For the sake of mostly just focusing on getting something done, the bare ass minimum number that I'm gonna need is going to be closer to about, I wanna say about, if I'm really pushing it, $50 a day. Because I've been able to book things like hostels for things like $30 to $35 a day with a $20 food budget. That leaves me enough to cover the absolute barest of asses, which roughly translates to about minimum wage. But minimum wage in countries where, there is no minimum wage, or the minimum wage is literal pennies a day, that can take me a lot further. So in current developed countries like I've been in, yeah, there's going to be a little bit of scraping by, but the whole idea is that once I start it up, I'll be able to scale it up from there. So yeah, that's about it for that point of reference. There actually is a second part to that question that I neglected to mention. They specifically asked, what does my future look like? And so I generally described in broad strokes what I would want to make monetarily, but not necessarily how that would look financially. So if I were just ignoring numbers in general, it would look like, ideally, me going out and taking classes. So one of the things that I've sort of noticed is, as much as I bitch about wanting like freedom and whatnot, there are actual benefits to having structure imposed from outside. I'm kind of annoyed by my tendency to generally just, when I'm left to my own devices, just generally sleep in, bullshit, waste time, binge watch anime, things like that. So in order to combat things like that, and just to make the best use of my time, I'd want to be able to go and find basically mentors or just take classes and whatnot. Things like cooking, language, guitar, stuff like that. Because trying each of those things independently, I get mixed results at best. Considering that I generally don't know what I'm doing and I'm not sticking with it enough to be able to teach myself fundamentals, to be able to carry on into the future and sort of naturally progress from there. It's sort of like, hey, I try this without any other context. Hey, let me try that unrelated thing without any other context, and it doesn't really lead to anything much. So, yeah, going around taking classes and whatnot to be able to increase my own skill level, as well as I think that's about it for now, because I do want to do consulting, so sales are definitely going to be one of those things. But the whole point of my travels at this point in time is to create the kind of person that has the freedom to do what they want, but the discipline to, want the things that are actually beneficial for you. Because when somebody's in the habit of jogging, the body doesn't really want Cheetos and wants things that are more nutritious. When you're actually actively learning, you don't want to do things like binge watch anime because that shit wastes your mind power. Stuff like that. So, yeah, if I were going to take the whole education into account, I have no idea what these things actually cost, and if there's a more cost-effective way to be able to find it. Like, does Japan have Groupon? Things like that. But that's about it for now. So I know that it says take it one day at a time, but since I pretty much just knocked that out of the way in like less than 15 minutes, I'm probably going to go ahead and tackle day 2 as well, just to make sure that I don't accidentally get bored and then never revisit it in the future. So the day 2 question that I'm preemptively already working on is going to be, what is the actual idea? The name of the chapter is How Money Grows on Trees. That sounds kind of bullshit hypey, but the general concept is going to be, what does it take for you to have an idea that's going to be profitable, executable by you right now? So one of the ideas that initially came to mind is going to be public speaking because, well, number one, that seems potentially lucrative down the line. It's a great way to be able to build awareness, thought leadership, trust, support of a bunch of other people, etc. And I get to practice actually talking about the shit that I read because, well, when you're just spending your time idly reading it, it kind of has a tendency to go in one ear, out the other, if you're not going to be able to do anything with it, apply it, etc., etc. So it makes sense in a lot of different ways. The main problem that I have is, number one, I'm in a place where, I don't really speak the language that well, and so finding public speaking opportunities is, so there's that. But also, another problem is simply going to be the fact that I don't know how I can get paid for it, at least not initially. Most people say that, or most blogs that I ended up reading say that you should expect to give about 100 or so free speeches before you're able to get paid for them. So I figure if I'm going to be doing those free reps, I might as well just do YouTube videos and use that as a little bit of a sample so I can go and get good at public speaking, show them a portfolio of sorts, and just continue from there. So it still doesn't quite answer the question of monetization. So thinking about different ideas for that.
Okay, so one of the ways that I'd be able to monetize it a little bit more effectively is by offering workshops. Now, it still has a relatively considerable lead time, considering that I'll have to throw like 2 or 3 or so before I'm actually able to start monetizing it. But 2 or 3 is better than 200 to 300. So, and plus I'd be able to have a more intimate connection with a small group of people, be able to find out what their needs are just by talking to them instead of doing a whole bunch of potentially unnecessary and redundant research. And yeah, I'd be able to get a good start that way. So that's another idea that I'm sort of kicking around. It's not definitively the one that I'm going to go with, but it's another one to toss around. Okay, so another idea could just be becoming like an independent researcher and whatnot. after doing a little bit of looking around at people who've taken a similar position, similar path, doesn't really pay very well. The main reason I would be interested is developing the skill set of research because, well, it's a lot more interesting than working in a kitchen, for example. Plus, the type of skill set that research requires seems to be inherently more fun, something that I'd be able to give my mind fodder to be able to, potentially work on while I'm off the shift and actually enjoy it. Things like that. It's just that in my own personal experience, outside of a classroom setting where everything is already highly structured, I become inefficient. The use of my time becomes a lot more scattered. So it looks pretty weird for me to talk to myself in public, but I was just interrupted by the Japanese dude. He was like, hey, your bag. It's in the way of someone. So, put it on that fancy ass stool. Problem solved. Yeah.
Also, minor problem. Slowly eating myself into bankruptcy because obligatory purchase, it's never said outright, and I don't even think it's expected. No one cares. But, I ended up getting like the overpriced coffee and like a cookie or whatever for admission to use Wi-Fi. And after that guy, I'm like, hey, what if they think I'm loitering? I totally am, but I don't want them to call me on it. So, matcha scone. Doesn't taste bad. It's not the greatest. $3. So currently I am still in the whole active research phase and whatnot, where I'm scanning through a bunch of books, a bunch of different articles, trying to come up with and steal different ideas and whatnot. And ultimately, I'm at the point where it seems like I'm really just reinventing the wheel. Frankly, I don't necessarily need to keep doing research because, well, it's an endless, vicious cycle. The more I look into things, the more questions I have, the more I want to be certain about things, which means the less certain about things I actually am. So it seems the absolute best thing to do is, like I mentioned earlier, kind of the whole philosophy that brought me here in the first place. It doesn't matter what I choose, it just matters that I stick with it and basically give it everything I've got. It sounds absolutely stupid, feels kind of stupid, but if it works, it works. And, well, being recklessly rational is the thing that seems to have worked for me so far. So the thing that comes to mind now is mostly what I've already came up with while I was doing that whole meditation for the 10 days. And it's a plan to make bank doing the online courses and using that to scale up to consulting. I may mix and match, add other things as necessary, but part of me, when it's going through the idea phase, has this kind of thing in the back of my mind. It's like, hey, you already came up with a solution. I'm not gonna work as hard because you're probably gonna end up ignoring that one as well. And, well, based on what we've seen now, based off the patterns I've been displaying, that's not wrong. Which means that before I'm able to create any other sorts of ideas, I have to take the ones that I've already created and seem viable seriously. And when I say seem viable, so the main thing that's been keeping me up not getting this done is mostly just the actual doing the work, the execution. Creating an online course, I was thinking of formatting it as a visual novel, and I don't have any sort of grip on the software, despite playing around with it for a while. So one of the things that I ended up thinking about was, hey, how about I find something else that has less work? And that's not necessarily bad in isolation. It's a form of escapism, though. If I allow myself to advocate because, oh no, it's too much work to set up, when literally it's only supposed to take 2 weeks for me to set up, then, well, I'm kind of wasting my time. I need to be able to stick with it, long enough to actually get something done, whether it's really brilliant or not. So, yeah, that's where I'm at right now. So instead of doing all this research, instead of reading more books on the shit, I'll just double down on the thing that I originally thought of, on the thing that I've originally planned, which is creating that goddamn online course. No escape.
I'd just like to clarify, I have no idea what's going on. It looks like Christmas, but it's mid-February. So unless they got some secret Santa thing I don't know about. Let's see. There's a camera, looks like maybe a game show. I guess.
So I went looking for another place that had both Wi-Fi and a charger, a place to charge my laptop and phone, because, you know, those things are important. So basically what ended up happening is...
So like, yeah, I ended up buying over $20 worth of food. Super spicy dish, because I saw like a $3.50 bread curry and I wanted to try it. And I peeked my head in, everyone greeted me simultaneously, and so, you know, there's like, oh yeah, god damn it, now I have to eat here. And so here I am.
So opening dish, curry pan. Basically it's my new favorite snack. It's basically like bread, but it has curry inside of it. So it's like a jelly-filled donut, but the texture is like crispy and kind of chewy. And you can fill it with a bunch of different stuff. This one has chicken curry. I was thinking about getting the other one, which would have potato curry. They have other ones that have seafood inside of it. So I'm just gonna take a bite of this.
You know, the flavor isn't actually as robust as I was kind of hoping, and it's kind of cold inside. So, minus points for that.